Nadia Giordana Solutions, and I'm here with another Focus Forward. This is really exciting. I have an author with me today who has done amazing things. The thing that I'm so excited about is this woman takes charge of her life. And when she tells you her story, you are going to be so inspired. Get your seatbelt on, because what she's going to tell you, you're going to be levitating right out, because she's done things that many people want to do, but most people never can do. And she's going to tell us about her book and how she's done it. So I want you to help me welcome Nadia Giordana today. Nadia, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Well, this is great. So what I want you to do is, and you're an award-winning author. I know, I just found that out. I'm surprised. And you're going to be a bestseller soon. I know it.
Let's hope.
Let's hope, yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about your first book, because I know your first book, Thinking Skinny, was the one that really started you on the path.
Yeah, and the books go together, or they play off of each other, but the first level of my story was Thinking Skinny, and how that started back in 2006. I was laid off from a corporate job. I had a corporate career in sales and marketing support, and what happened was right before all of the economy downturns, I got laid off, and I had planned to work and retire from that company, and I had my life set. That was the plan, and I was 59 years old. Actually, I was 58 years old, and what do you do with the rest of your life? I felt old, unhireable, useless, all those things that we go through when you're at that age, think you have your life set, and then everything gets turned upside down. I sat on my couch for a year feeling sorry for myself, and one day I finally said, you know, this is just too much. It can't be all over. There must be some things I can do. And I started thinking about what I really wanted to do, and what I really needed to do to pull myself back up by the bootstraps, to use that expression. And I thought the first thing I need to do is start feeling better about myself, get healthier. I had some weight issues that I needed to address. And I also needed to get over being self-conscious and insecure about my abilities and things like that. So the first thing that I did was start eating healthier. And it took about 14 months for me to lose 88 pounds, which that's a big deal. That was a big deal. And it, you know, I didn't follow any commercial diets. I knew what I was doing wrong. I knew what was wrong. It's not like there was no big mystery. It's like, come on, girl. So I changed my lifestyle and my eating habits. I couldn't bring in exercise right away because I had a leg injury. Oh. And that was due to being overweight for such a small frame. I'm only 5'2". So I had to get that weight down before I could bring in exercise. Then I brought in the exercise, started feeling better, started thinking, yeah, you know, I can do some other things, and maybe I will go out there and do some other things. There's no point in retiring right now and waiting for that Social Security check to come around. And I kept notes through that whole time. Oh. And because I thought, I was a writer, I thought I'll start a blog, I might write an article. I kept a food diary, all those things that were useful. And by the time I got to the end of it, I thought, I have enough material here for a book. So then I spent the next 6 months working on the book, and that's when Thinking Skinny came together. And I definitely spent like the next year or so going around and talking and sharing my book and telling the story. And then one day the light bulb came on, and I thought to myself, this is not about weight loss at all. It's really not about that. It's about being 60 years old and thinking that you can't make major changes in your life. This just happened to be one of the major changes I needed to make in my life. But it, again, is about being a certain age and wanting to make changes, realizing you're not too old, and go out there and start doing and making those changes. And that's when I decided that what else, I was on a high at that point. I did this, I accomplished this, what else can I do that I felt in my entire life that I could never accomplish? And that was overcome a fear of public speaking. I had a paralyzing fear of public speaking. And being in front of a camera like this, I'm on your show here today, oh my gosh, I would have been absolutely silent and pasty white, and you wouldn't have heard a peep out of me. In fact, I wouldn't have even stepped foot on the stage. I would have declined any offers if there would have been any. So I worked on that and you know, I did that going through several steps too, but I started out with a little internet radio show. And if you think about that, that was because there's a barrier there. No one can see me, and I don't know what it is about the idea of a camera on me or someone to see me, but that's the way it was. It's the same thing, I spent years in sales. It was all telephone sales, so I wasn't face-to-face with my clients and customers. Again, it's a quiet sight. You're nodding your head. You understand what I'm saying. And so I did the radio thing for a while until that was a slam dunk and it became boring. Maybe not boring, it was fun, but I wanted more. And it was nice at that point because I could have my notes and things like that. But as the conversation got better, I thought, you know, it's time to tackle video. And so I got a good camera and started doing some videos for my website. You know, I had the website for my books, and well, at that time it was just one book, but I had that. I wanted to do some video introductions and things, and started practicing, and some of those early ones have all been taken down. They were pretty bad, but when I thought about it, they were pretty darn good from where I came from. From how I started. You know, they were stilted and the speaking was measured and I made a lot of mistakes, but I actually started to become fun. And beyond that then, I did start to do just what you're doing here now. I invented my own internet TV show, which eventually now is being broadcast on St. Paul Neighborhood Network and Lake Minnetonka Communications. And what fun that is. It's so much fun. I've met so many exciting women, and it's a lot harder being in this chair for me, being with telling my story, because I love asking the questions now. I love hearing their stories, and I love the women that I've met and what we've been doing as we've gone along. It's just been terrific.
So now I have to stop because I have a million questions.
Oh, good.
Is this really you?
Yes. Yes.
Because when I look at this, I say, I don't think this is really her.
You know, that was at my top weight, and I didn't have any makeup on that day. See how I'm making excuses? But yes, that was really
It's amazing transformation.
Yeah.
It's an amazing transformation.
Yeah. Well, I carried the weight in such a way, too, that I carried a lot of weight across through my face, which I find interesting. Not everybody does. But definitely as the weight came off, I changed. My own mother said the same thing. My mother said that she was gone for a year. They lived in Alaska. She came back one time, and she said, I almost didn't know you. You look so different. And that was the year that I had really gained a great deal of weight and had looked different. But yeah, it made a difference. That's really me.
Well, that's great. That's an amazing story. So now I need to ask you, it sounds to me like you went from, and I'm going to paraphrase here, somebody who was going through the motions of life and doing what you thought you should be doing and doing it long enough before they could say, okay, you don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Well, they said it earlier than you thought.
Yeah.
So now they set you free. And then you sat there and you said to yourself for a year, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then it sounds like you came out of the gate like charging out, losing the weight, getting your own show, writing a book, doing this, doing that. So now you're at a place where you've tackled and overcome very nicely your biggest fear, which, how do you do it? How would you recommend that our viewers, tackle their biggest fear?
I'd have to say that let's use the fear of speaking as an example, because a whole lot of people have that fear. This is not a rare kind of fear to have. The biggest thing I needed to do was get out of my own skin and self-consciousness and accept the idea that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say something dumb. I'm going to find out that my clothes were wrong, and not something worse than my collar being askew was there through the whole thing. These things are going to happen. The wardrobe malfunctions. It even happened, the loss of the idea of what I wanted to stay and that deer in the headlights. I had to accept the idea that these things are going to happen. They're going to be recorded. People are going to see it, and that's going to be okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. Life will go on. Sure, somebody out there might laugh, but those are the people that aren't my friends. My friends will see it, and they might go, and then they'll come to me and tell me, you did wonderful, Nadia, you did wonderful. And that's what has happened. And you just get past that and dive in there and do it. Make the mistakes.
So you know what? I have this blog that I wrote after I had done, I don't know how many shows, maybe 50 shows or whatever. I don't know, because I never watched my show. I was like, I'm not going to watch that show because there's no way I'm going to go and do another show if that show is bad. So I just kept doing it, and I knew I wasn't doing a great job. But I said to myself, what's worth doing well is worth doing poorly at first. So I gave myself permission to not be great at it.
Yes.
You know, I had been in that world at NBC and CNBC for so many years, working with top professionals. I knew what they put into it. They put a lot into their shows.
Yeah.
And everybody around makes them look good on their shows.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that goes involved in on all that. And I just said to myself, you know what? It's okay if you're not doing it great. You're going to eventually be good at it. So tomorrow I have a speaking engagement. I've always had the fear of public speaking.
You
so
have?
Yes, so I know what you're talking about. I would totally flatten whenever I was in front of people. Like, I have a vivacious personality.
Yes,
At least
do.
people tell me that,
You
know.
do.
And energetic and all that. It would dissipate when I was in front of people. But you know what? This, which was your radio show, you know what I mean? Your radio.
Yeah.
This was my ability, okay, this is the stab that I'm going to make in the dark, that I'm going to allow myself to do this and become good at it, because it's going to change everything for me. That's what happened. Now I go out, I speak in front of groups, I can speak in front of hundreds of people. It doesn't bother me at all. I let myself be who I am. And if I forget something, I go, oh, forgot. But you know what I want to say, ba-da-da-da-da. So it doesn't matter. Nobody is expecting perfection. Now I'm doing the Google Hangouts, the Hangouts on air, the most fun ever. Every single day I make a mistake, but you can't, it's live TV. It's not like this where I can say, Tony Rose, there's a mistake, or Tony Rose comes out and says to me, there's a mistake. It's a mistake. I just keep going.
Roll with it.
It teaches you. It's like actors when they talk about, yeah, they've been in so many movies, but that wasn't really important. It was the theater that they did. Because if you work in theater, like I worked in theater in New York, work in theater, you can see every single night that there's some malfunction that goes on that stage, but the actors have to be with it enough to figure out how they're going to work through it.
Yeah.
So you can see them work through it. That live TV is the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And they realize that the audience is more forgiving than you think it is. And it works itself out.
Well, I used to say nobody's watching. When I started this, I was like, well, nobody's really watching. And then one day, I get a Skype call from this guy. He wants to be my friend, and he's in the Netherlands. And he's like, I've been watching your show. And I'm like, I'm watching my show? Really? Yeah, I think it's great. And I'm like, really? And he's been on the show a few times. So tell us about reinventing.
You know, that was also, I had to think through the processes and things that I did to start making changes in my life. And I almost had to work backwards, because when I was doing it, I wasn't reading my own book, although I do refer to it now when I start projects, just like I refer to that book about every year or two. But I had to think backwards and think about the things that I put into place in my mind. And of course, the first step was reinventing or reshaping a healthier body and mind, because that gave me the foundation. That gave me my rock to work on, work from. That gave me my steadiness. And then as I went along with that, of course, realigning personal relationships that are out of sync. If you think about that, and sometimes there's nothing we can do with those things, but allow and accept that that's going to be there in the background. But if there's stress, and if there are personal conflicts going on in your life, it's real hard to focus on doing something new and different in your life. And I just took those steps and went through that. And also thinking about, here's a fun story. I had this idea in my mind that every time I wanted to do something new, or you have this picture, other people have done this, that it's always such a big thing. It's always such a big project. It's always so unapproachable. Well, if you can picture this, have you seen the mountain climbers that have this photograph of themselves at the top of the mountain, and the whole world is down below them? Wouldn't you just love to have a selfie like that? Well, I wanted one, and I thought to myself, but I'm not a mountain climber. How would I ever get a picture like that? So I put it out of my mind for years. And then last summer, I was in Colorado, in the Pikes Peak region, and looking at some ways of getting up to the top of Pikes Peak, and I thought, that'd be a great place to get this picture. Oh, but I'm not a mountain climber. Well, you don't have to be a mountain climber to get to the top of Pikes Peak. Oh, but I can't hike that far. It takes 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, and that's probably for someone who's really healthy. So that's out. Oh, there's a road that goes up. You could drive up there. All right, then you only hike a certain way. Getting more interesting, getting more interesting. Because my dream, my idea, the fun thing that I wanted to add to my repertoire was a selfie at the top of this mountain, not being the mountain climber. And so readjusting my thinking. So anyway, I'm thinking, no, I don't know that my car, how it would perform on the high altitude. So what are my other options? Well, there's a railroad that goes all the way up to the absolute top of that mountain. You can ride all the way up, step off, get your picture and I found a boulder. I found the perfect large boulder and got up on top of it. There was a drop-off down below, so it was perfect picture, and stood on that boulder and got my stance, and my husband was with me, so I guess it technically isn't really a selfie. But took the picture with my arms outspread and a big smile on my face, and it's on my one of my web pages. And what a great picture! And it didn't have to be the tremendous effort that I had thought all along it would have to be. Now, it's just a matter of changing your thinking about what you might want to do. It may not be as hard as you think it is.
It's interesting the way you're dissecting that dream, because you position yourself, this is what I want. All right, here's what I want. So you've now decided what it is. And then what you've done is you've come up with so many different ways you can make that happen. So for an entrepreneur, if we decided we were going to do that, because often people are trapped in the how.
Yes.
They're trapped in the how, and that how, it just becomes, well, I don't know how I would ever do this. I don't know how I would ever do that. I don't know. And they're always like in that negative space with the how. The reality is you place that, this is what I want, and it was almost like these ideas kept coming forward and saying, you could do it like this, you could do it like that. There's this, and there's that. So when we look at it, I think as entrepreneurs, the important thing is not to know the how. The important thing is to decide what it is that you want.
What it really is that you want. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that your book also talks about that, because it's exactly as you're saying with your selfie at the top of the mountain. It's kind of the same thing I got out of your book was, here's the way that we can go about doing this. We decide what it is we want. We don't muck it up by looking for 50 different diets and trying 50 different diets. We already know the information that we need. We already know the basics on losing weight, okay? And we know what we need to do. We know. We can change, we can check with ourselves and come up with the answer. So when we look at that, I think that people have this idea about the change that they'd want to make in their life. Why do you think that they're not going for it?
I think, I think sometimes, because I've done this before, you do get stuck in the idea that the how is going to be hard. And sometimes it is, and it can be. And certain things, certain big things, will take a period of years. That's the other thing, is the idea that I'm a certain age. I remember being 40 years old and thinking, oh my gosh, why bother to try anything? What? Why bother to try this? It's too late. It's too late to go back to college. It's too late to do this. It's too late to start a new career. No, that's not true. We get stuck in how hard the how might be. Some things aren't as hard, and if it's worth it, then, like you say, it's worth doing poorly in the beginning. It's worth spending some time on it. It's worth getting better at it, and it just depends on how badly you want it. And I think people, if they get to a point where they really do want it, then it becomes less daunting.
Yes, you have to really want that thing that you say you want.
Yeah.
You're willing to put the work in. So tell us about what steps you have seen people attempt and succeed with their reinvention of themselves.
You mean, well, I'd have to say that what I see, and I've learned this from other people, so my 3-tier goal setting, other than what I do at the third point, is I've learned from other people, just be vigilant with your goal setting, be methodical, do those notes, start out with the baby steps. I learned from other people who I've seen were successful, this person actually set goals. I remember the training classes when I was in sales in corporate, and we had those lessons and those training lessons. Take those goals and do the steps. Take the baby steps in the beginning. Up those goals, stretch your capabilities, and then the third one, and I don't even remember now who I learned this from, and part of that came from within myself, was once you've gotten to the point where you're pretty darn good, make that final goal a showstopper. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't say, whew, this is about as far as I thought I could go. I'm pretty happy. I'm proud of myself. No, that means the brass ring is right within your reach. And that's when you set another goal. I have a quote for you. This was written by Bob Proctor. And I think everybody knows who he is. And this quote just gives me goosebumps. And I want to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. Set a goal to achieve something so big, so exhilarating, that it excites you and scares you at the same time. It must be a goal so appealing, so much in line with your spiritual core, that you can't get it out of your mind. Does that say it all right there?
It says it all.
It really does.
It says it all. That's amazing. So tell us how we can get in touch with taking our achievement and making it a showstopper. How do we do that?
I did use, in the beginning, a lot of prayer just to get to my soul searching and into my center. I used visualizations, and they're different. They're similar, but they're different. And I used a great deal of visualization to really rearrange my mindset. You're rearranging your thinking and replacing negative pictures with the positive pictures. And that's some of the things that I did. And that's mechanics and nuts and bolts and following through on the goals.
It's interesting that you mentioned the visualization and your self-talk, if you will. That is one of the ways that I have heard, because I do a lot of studying about the brain and the subconscious mind, and that's one of the ways to retrain your subconscious mind. So one of the things that we do at Business on the Beach, my retreat for authors and also entrepreneurs, is to help people understand how they can retrain their brain. We use visualization, we use affirmations, we use meditation, and also the business practices, you know, the solid business practices. But the difference in people is amazing. It's like what you're talking about here. It's like we can see this physical difference. It's also the amazing emotional and mental and spiritual and all the differences that are encompassed in that, and the reinvention. It's people charging forward and being able to do what it is that they need to do, but they have to get their subconscious mind in line with their conscious mind, because the subconscious mind is really the goal getter. So we have to have that forcing us or helping us to forge forward.
You know what it is too with what you're talking about, the business on the beach? I'll guarantee you that the people that go there and have that experience, even though they may know some of the material, they may know some of the points there, it's almost so incredibly important to have someone else outside of you give you that permission or tell you what you've been thinking is right, add to that and build on it, and all of a sudden it's a whole new experience.
It's a whole new experience. And the interesting thing is I see people take a kernel of an idea and they make a full dream from that, a big dream, huge dream. And then what I notice is through the mastermind that we have, those calls, the dream is starting to fall in line. Each call, they're getting closer to the dream and closer. And I've seen absolutely amazing things happen. It's like when you interview somebody on your show, they get a different idea. They think bigger. They feel better. They're more excited and enlivened. It's just like some of the doubt. It's like the doubt dissipates.
It does. It does.
It becomes it goes from a why to a why not. It's amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
This has been a phenomenal show. I knew it was going to be.
And
After
fun.
talking to you on the phone, I was like, this is going to be great. So thank you so much. These books are amazing. I love them. I think anybody who wants to make changes in their life, these are very great guides that are not talking about outlandish things.
No.
They're talking about making these changes, incremental changes, setting your goals, and then working towards them. And these are really great tools to help them do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this was a great show. I loved it. I'm just like so excited. I'm going to run home and do another show, my Google Hangout on air. But who wants to leave all this energy, right? I want you to help me thank Nadia for being here, and absolutely pick up one of her books or both. If you really need help, if you really want to move forward and make the changes in your life, here are the tools. You don't have to look any further. So thanks so much for tuning in. Lori Flecker, Focus Forward. Take care.